How many wake-up calls does it take for you to wake up? How many times do you need to hear the same thing before you change? I'm quite interested in this concept, that we can be stuck in a worldview or a pattern of thought and continue to live it, often long after evidence adds up that demonstrates our way of life is not the best. Sometimes, yes, this is due to trauma, pain, or a deeply formative moment that overrules the present reality. But I think a lot of the time, we're just afraid of change. Going to the edges of life keeps me in a place where my values, patterns of thought, and worldview are in constant challenge. I've learned to like that, but it wasn't easy. I was, and in many ways still am, stuck. So I want to tell you 3 stories today. Brief interactions that highlight one aspect of my Christian walk that needed to change. I needed to wake up to hear that we're all human, that we all deserve love and respect. And most of my thought patterns denied that reality. It's lessons I've learned this week on the edges. Story 1. I was sitting in a downtown mall in London shortly after taking this position. I had just finished meeting with one of the folks I knew who had known a life on the streets. My mind was full and swirling with new information and trying to grow in my understanding. And I saw a person. Now, I don't really know why, but I shuddered when I saw this person. Internally shuddered. Not from fear, but disgust. I didn't know the person. Just something about their appearance made me shudder. I still can't describe what it was. The thing is, I knew that reaction was wrong, and I didn't know exactly how to overrule it. So in a strange moment, I prayed a quick little prayer. God, help me to see this person the way you see this person. I opened my eyes and looked towards that person afresh. And for the briefest of moments, in their place, I saw my son. And then it was that person again. The answer to that prayer seemed clear to me then as it is now. It was as if God's voice said the following: "You want to see what I see in that person? That person is my child. I love that one the way you love your child. Now begin treating all my children like that." Story 2. As we drove over to the park in Washington, D.C., we received our instructions from the group leader. We were to do ministry for the afternoon, as the Spirit led us, we were told, meaning we were supposed to sense God's voice and leading as we walked through the park, so we would talk to and share Jesus with the right person. I saw him under a few trees and some smaller bushes seeking shade. This was him. I knew it. I felt something drawing me towards him. I knew he was a homeless man, long green coat that had faded in color from too much exposure to the sun. His face was weathered, and a full beard, white, disheveled hair. I sensed that Jesus would want me to talk to him for sure. I would share a water bottle and perhaps have a good conversation. I just needed an opening line. "Hey, how are you?" That seemed too folksy. "Do you know Jesus?" That would be too aggressive. Thankfully, I remembered what our leader shared. Watch the person, and God will give you something to say. I watched. He was struggling. On the short-cut grass, the cardboard underneath him was shifting every time he shifted his body. He could not get it right. The cardboard kept moving, and it was obviously frustrating. I saw that he just wanted that cardboard to be completely underneath him so he could rest. With the right move, it happened. The piece of cardboard rested perfectly under the man. He stretched out his legs. He leaned on one arm and smiled. He could relax now. In that moment, I knew my line. Walking confidently towards him, kneeling down and looking him in the eye, I shared my opening line. "Are you comfortable on that?" He looked up at this interruption to his life. He just stared at me, in silence. I began to sense I wasn't welcomed, and he started to laugh. At me, at the stupidity of my question, at the total lack of understanding I had about his life, at the audacity I had to attempt to enter his life with my salvation. It was a dismissive laugh, and I walked away. Story 3. When I first moved to London, it was important for me to raise funds for the work I did among street-level youth. So when a local community group invited me to a lunch meeting so that I could speak and share about my work and ask for funds, I jumped at the opportunity. And I asked my friend Eric to tag along. Eric was the first person I met in London who had experienced life on the streets. He was, and is, a mentor and friend. We got to the meal, exchanged pleasantries over the meal with club members at our table, and I was invited then to speak. And I spoke. I shared about life on the streets as I saw it, painful, challenging, and often scary world. I shared about trying to get food, a place to stay, experiencing rejection from family, friends, and others. I shared intimate stories of those I had met and their real pain. And the stories were what I called then effective. I could see some people were in tears. They would surely support us after this talk. I was proud of my talk. After we left, I asked Eric what he thought. He said, "It was okay." "Okay? That was great. Didn't you see their reaction?" "Yeah, that was okay." But hey, in sharing nothing but our pains, you forgot so many aspects of who we are. You forgot that we laugh, we are silly, we might have a favorite movie, that we play games, that we tell jokes. Gil, you forgot that we are human. His words stung then, 14 years ago, as they continue to do now. But in many ways, Eric, that man in the park, and that person in the mall are prophets to me to remember that they are human. They are not projects, objects to convert, something to pity, or even the star of a good Gil story, as one of my friends shared with me one day. They are none of those things. They are human beings, God's kids, the very image of love. So I'm waking up to the many ways I, and often we as the church, continue to treat others as less than human. I'm learning how my actions, my words, the systems I support continue to dehumanize others. So now I have a responsibility to be different, to wake up, to challenge, to be friends, to be allies, to see a common humanity, and to love. Much more to say about this. So like, subscribe, and share if you can. And until next week, thanks for listening.